bachelor's program that has an internship in one of the helping professions, you can come, work with us the way I started 17 years ago. And so Shannon and I, for the last 4 or 5 years, have continued this relationship of me coming out twice a semester. And it's been awesome. The students' response has been awesome. We've had some referrals from parents who have attended these workshops and realized that their young person was in crisis and needed a safe place to be. We've had parents come join our parenting classes because of the workshops. We've had probably some students then launch off into the helping professions because they're able to meet somebody who's in the field working.
Excellent. And where else have you done workshops at? Are there other colleges as well, or?
I attended a workshop for domestic violence in Santa Ana College, Community College. I do a lot of workshops with young people in at high schools. A lot of high schools and middle schools I'll do workshops. Anytime there's young people gathering or parents of young people gathering, I will provide a workshop that's on any topic that is related to, excuse me, I have to cough. I will provide a workshop for any young people or parents of young people on any teen issue so that we can get any of that prevention work out in regards to the issues that young people are dealing with at our shelter.
And, I know that kids, usually one of the biggest issues they face also at school, sometimes bullying.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that is the group I run at the shelter on Tuesdays is a group called the Issues of Abuse Group. And bullying, we reframe that in terms of peer abuse. When we're looking at abuse, all types of abuse, we're looking at a broad scope definition. We have it's an aggressive act where there's a pattern or an escalation to that aggressive act, and that aggressive act can be direct or indirect. If I came and punched you in the head, you'd probably think that's pretty aggressive, right? That's a direct aggressive act. However, if I went to all the people around you and told them to not talk to you and shun you, that's not necessarily in your face and you're not necessarily going to feel it physically, but that's definitely an aggressive act. And so aggressive acts where there's a pattern or an escalation, where there's then an imbalance of power or strength. We often think of abuse as child abuse or intimate partner violence because the power difference would be in child abuse, there's an adult who's being aggressive and has power and strength over a child. And in intimate partner violence, we have two people who might be in a relationship who the power difference might be strength, but it also might be financial or children or emotional. Somebody might have emotional power over another person. But when we're looking at bullying or peer abuse, it's the same definition. It's when people are being aggressive. Either it's an increasing level of aggression or it's in a pattern. Maybe I'm nice to you when it's just you and I talking, and then I shun you when other people are around. And I do that because I have power. Maybe I have social power. Maybe I'm popular. Maybe I'm older. Maybe I'm bigger. Maybe I'm more popular. But there's a power difference there. So we need to make sure that we're recognizing that bullying is peer abuse and has a lot of similar ramifications to the victim that other forms of abuse might have.
And also, tell us about the cycle of abuse.
The cycle of abuse is found in many different types of abuse. First, as humans, we have stress. I'd like to know anybody listening, if they don't have stress, give me a call. I'm at Cost Youth Shelter. I'd like to live your life. But humans have stress, good stress, bad stress, and it's how we deal with our stress. And often people who don't have coping skills on dealing with their stress then can become high risk for having abusive behavior because they're looking to possibly put their stress on other people and gain power over other people. So when we have stress, we may have tension if we're not dealing with our stress. And so in the cycle of violence, you would have this tension building. And in tension building has the potential to become abusive if we're not dealing with that stress. Well, abusive people will then have some kind of incident. Now, depending on where you are in the escalation of this, the incident might be calling somebody stupid, or it might be calling somebody outside of their name, or it might be pushing somebody. This could escalate. This incident could escalate to spitting, punching, grabbing, raping, killing. This escalation, and nobody enters these relationships at the height of the escalation. They enter it, and there's that small boundary violation that happens in the cycle. So first you have your tension building, then you have some kind of incident that occurs. And then a person who is abusive is often wanting to maintain that power over the other person. And so they enter something called the honeymoon stage, where they are apologetic and making lots of promises of grandeur that they're going to change. And that's often based on fear that the other person's going to leave if they don't make things right. Instead of being based on the actual acknowledgement that what they've done has actually violated that other person's rights. And so the person often stays in a relationship because these promises are made. And the love is great when it's great, but it's bad when it's really bad. But they're staying for the great. And they think everything's going to be better. And so maybe in the honeymoon stage, there's a pregnancy that occurs, or maybe there's a engagement that happens, or there's flowers, or there's let's go to therapy, or I've got your name tattooed on my arm, or let's go to prom, whatever that looks like. But in the cycle of violence, there's this honeymoon, but it's temporary because that person who's abusive hasn't learned how to deal with their stress and hasn't learned how to cope and hasn't learned how to stop violating the rights of others. So once again, we're stressed out people because people become stressed and they're not coping, and once again we're going to start into the tension building stage. And then you have to get too much tension, you're going to have another incident. And after an incident, they're going to need to maintain power, and they're going to enter back into the honeymoon stage, and there's the cycle. And it's very hard to get out of that cycle when you're in it as a victim.
We'll be right back after this quick break.
You have a PSA? That's cool. Sorry, I was having like a major cough attack, and I was like, I'm dying over here.
Yeah, the commercial breaks helps get a quick breather.
Oh my goodness.
Or sometimes just think of what to talk about next and stuff like that.
This is great. You've got a bullying PSA.
Yeah, my advisor, he takes care of everything. So all we got to do is just push a button and open up the script.
So does he know, like, this is a person coming in who could talk about, let's say, bullying?
He doesn't.
Then he pulls that up?
Well, no, he doesn't know, like we have full control of our... Hold on, I got to read this thing. Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. There are safe, simple ways that your child can help stop bullying. Teach your kids the 5 bystander tips. Number 1, tell a trusted adult like a family member, teacher, or coach. Number 2, help the person being bullied get away from the situation. Number 3, be a friend to the person being bullied. Number 4, set a good example. Do not bully others. Number 5, don't give bullying an audience. Visit stopbullying.gov to learn more. Safe, simple ways your child can be more than just a bystander. Message from WPMD and the Ad Council. We just get to pick like from any one of those. But like it totally tied into. Like,
totally.
Yeah. So we just his only rule is just make sure you read any one of those from PSA and the promo. You alternate.
That's cool. I just figured out that WPMD stands for where people make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's such a cool tagline, where people make a difference. And I'm staring at your sign, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. What's that?
No, I'm looking at the countdown for when that commercial finishes.
Oh, I'll pay attention.
And we are back here on the Falcon Spotlight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Rob Flores, here at Cerritos College in Norwalk, California. And remember that Falcon Spotlight is available as a fan page as well on Facebook. Just look up Cerritos College Falcon Spotlight. And you can email me at robert06flores@gmail.com and look for my YouTube channel as well. This is always a great time for, plugging in contact info and stuff. How can people reach you?
People can easily reach me on my email at the shelter. My email is my first and last name, which is Pamela Sepulveda. That's PAMELA SEPULVEDA. Pamela Sepulveda at casayouthshelter.org, or you can call the shelter at 562-594-6825. I am there full-time at the shelter, and I love to assist any young professional who's interested in the helping professions, because there were people who helped me along the way, and I feel as I want to give back. And so when I give my talks at Cerritos College, I always tell young people, take my business card, email me if you have any questions. If you're not sure what you want to do, come down to the shelter, take a tour. We'll introduce you to what this shelter does and what this nonprofit looks like, to see if this is the type of work you might want to do.
And also, you mentioned before about divorce, and that, I think that's important also, for kids that are listening. What are some tips you have for, some kids or even adults that, they're witnessing their parents right now going through a divorce?
Divorce is really tough, and it's, as we all know, much more common today than it might have been a generation ago. The biggest tip that we can give for young people and parents experiencing this is that every feeling we have is okay. In divorce, there's a lot of different feelings. It's not just sadness. There's sometimes anger. There's sometimes joy. Sometimes there's so much conflict in a home. Kids are excited that their parents might be getting divorced, because that means that there's going to be some calm days ahead. But divorce is primarily, we need to look at divorce like it's a death, it's a grief, right? It's a grieving process. There's so many things in life that we go through where we are grieving. And if we allow ourselves to go through the grieving process with divorce and accept the feelings that we might be dealing with, anger, denial, depression. We might have some bargaining where we're trying to, Mom and Dad, I promise if you stay married, I'll be the best student out there. And that's just somebody trying to cope with the idea that they're realizing that change is here. And we just have to make sure that everyone knows, parents and teens and children, that every feeling that someone's having is their feeling and they're allowed to have it. Now then I look at the teenagers and I say, so you feel what you want to feel, but that doesn't mean you can behave however you want to behave, We need to make sure that we keep our behaviors in check. But, you can feel as sad as you want to feel. You just can't hurt yourself and hurt other people and destroy people's property. You want to feel angry, you feel angry. You want to feel enraged, feel enraged. Maintain those feelings without hurting people, hurting yourself, or destroying property, and we'll be doing very well.
How about some tips for someone that if they've lost a loved one?
Again, that's looking at grief, and grief is normal. Grief is expected. When I worked in the elementary school as a school social worker, children would come in and they would just tell me they were so sad, if their grandma or grandpa had died, and they just didn't feel like they really wanted to do much, and it had been only a week. I'd look at them and I'd say, that's normal. If you came in here and said you wanted to go march in a parade and dance and sing, that might that would be normal also, because everybody grieves differently, but it's okay to feel sad when you've lost somebody, or in the case of divorce, going back to that, you've lost a relationship. That's normal to feel that sense of loss and grieve. In counseling, we typically want people to start moving forward in a short 6 weeks. We want people, that doesn't mean that in 6 weeks everything has to be back to normal. But if we're having a hard time with every single day crying after 6 weeks, we want to make sure that we're maybe talking to a professional and maybe getting some help and having that right support around you, and that we're not doing this alone.
Sometimes students, they may face, some struggles as far as like with their family, like cultural wise. Some people they're brought up differently where they don't understand maybe education. They're like, oh well, like you should be working, like you should be like, even if it's just working at McDonald's, and like they might not understand, the value of education. So like, what tips do you have for people that they may have like family members like that they're just like
Cultural issues?
Yeah.
Within counseling, as a therapist, that's a big part of being a therapist is cultural competency and understanding what different cultures bring to the table, and at the same time, not pigeonholing somebody into a culture. If I'm working with a family that maybe speaks Spanish, maybe I'm not going to say the word depression. Maybe I'm going to say the word sadness, and that there's certain words that are buzzwords within different cultures. Also, when I'm working with some cultures, maybe an Asian American family, maybe I'm going to be paying attention to that they might not talk as much about their feelings, but it might come out more in what we call like a psychosomatic response, so headaches or stomach aches or things like that. So having cultural competency is incredibly important, and understanding what is the cultural norm within your family culture, because we have our culture, maybe our nationality culture, but then we have our family culture, right? We have our family culture that also builds, and in some families, the culture is that dad's the only one who feels angry and mom's the only one who feels sad, and if you want to cry, you've better give us something good that you're crying about. And our young people need to know that all their feelings are okay. It's just the behaviors we have to make sure are in check, and really educating yourself on emotional competencies if maybe your family doesn't allow for that.
Another question I ask my guests is, where do they see themselves, like post-retirement, and what would you like your legacy to be for people that had the opportunity to meet you? What do you hope they took out of it and remembered the most?
Well, that's a great question. So where do I see myself in my retirement? Well, if I follow after Mildred, there'll be no retirement. You just work until you're dead. No, retirement. I haven't thought much about retirement because I love what I do. When you love what you do, you don't feel like you're going to work. I actually walk around in my profession often thinking, I get paid for this. I get paid to do this. This is so cool. I have rarely ever met a helper or a social worker who thinks to themselves, man, I wish I was giving more to society. And oftentimes we hear people in retirement say, I'm going to maybe go volunteer somewhere, or I'm going to go give to the community. And I'm very fortunate that I chose a profession that I get paid to help and give to the community. So retirement, I don't know, maybe I'll go hang out at Disneyland. I love Disneyland. Go hang out in Jamaica. Go on the beach somewhere.
And your legacy?
And my legacy? I would just like my legacy to be that I was a thinker who thought outside the box, and that I inspired others to be to the best of their potential, and that my goal was to make this world a better place.
Excellent. Well, I do want to thank you for taking the time to be here on the Falcon Spotlight.
Well, thank you for having me. This was so cool. And I hope that everybody out there listening tells their friends about this radio station. You've got some great history here, and I'd love to hear this this station heard by, tenfold people, many more.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, this concludes this episode. Remember that you can go on to Facebook, and you can go on to YouTube. Just look up Cerritos College Falcon Spotlight. Until next time, folks.